Welcome to another edition of Soul Fire Ascension with Raven and Lisa Love Light. Raven is an aura, past life regression, and clinical hypnotherapist, a quantum galactic Akashic reader, raw Reiki angelic alchemy healing practitioner, and Yushui Reiki master. Raven also offers one-on-one spiritual consultations. Book your free 15-minute discovery Zoom call with Raven at ravenshealingarts.com. Lisa is an aura practitioner, raw Reiki quantum galactic Akashic reader, Yushui Reiki master, and offers one-on-one soul coaching sessions. For questions or booking sessions, you can message her at sacredheartquantumhealing.com or at myabundanceflows247@aol.com. You can watch Soul Fire Ascension on YouTube and Rumble. You can also listen to Soul Fire Ascension on Spotify. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and we hope you enjoy the show. Greetings. Welcome to another edition of Soul Fire Ascension with Raven and Lisa Love Light. Tonight we have Danny Carroll, and he has been on our show before, so he is a returning champion. I'm going to introduce Danny by using his video. So here we go. Soul Fire Ascension welcomes author Danny Carroll with his newly written book, Breast Cancer is a Misdiagnosis. Danny Carroll has spent the last 20 years studying alternative healing therapies in search of the holy grail of health and wellness. Following a cathartic healing experience in 2012, he has focused on mind-body healing protocols for the last 10 years. He has spent the last 10 years using his medical science to help people with chronic and terminal health conditions to fully recover their health. Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis is Danny's first book. The book achieved multiple bestseller awards on Amazon and was awarded gold in the 2023 Global Book Awards in the category of medical books. Danny explains the concept of spontaneous remissions in terminal cancers and helps people to do that consciously. He is a pioneer of medical discoveries and healing protocols that most are unwilling to explore until they have no other alternative. Live March 7th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you missed the live show, you can catch the replay on YouTube and on Rumble at Soul Fire Ascension, or listen to Soul Fire Ascension on Spotify. Don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. Yay!
Yay!
So now we know all about the preliminaries of who you are, Danny.
Indeed, absolutely.
And thank you for coming back on the show.
Oh, it's always an absolute pleasure, Raven. Thank you for having me back.
So you've got a new book that's just about to come out. Breast Cancer is a Misdiagnosis.
I have this is I think the third or fourth version of the book. There have been previous versions of the book that historically I only published to my website. In the last period, the censorship has been quite oppressive. So I took a decision not to publish this book. I wrote the first version of it 2 years ago. I was actually planning to publish this last year, but then I had quite an extraordinary experience during the summer for 3 months last year. I was woken up in the middle of the night with divine downloads telling me to rewrite my book, my breast cancer book, and not only to rewrite it with extraordinary detail, Raven, in terms of exactly what I'd missed from the book, down to the point where literally I was sent downloads saying, Danny, you've missed a bone in the metastasis section. This is like extraordinary amount of detail, and that went on for about a month, and basically gave me the structure, the chapter structure, the contents of each chapter and each section. I mean, it was in quite extraordinary detail. So I've now done as I've been instructed and rewritten the book, and I'm now preparing this for publishing at the moment. Wow. This never happened to me before, right? So this is after I published my first book, Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis, this one, I went to a medium, and she told me that Dr. Hummer planned to start downloading information to me. Now, I've never experienced that before, so at the time I just took it for what it was and then parked it and let it be. But in sort of June, July last year, I then started receiving these divine downloads. I got to the end of like 3 months of being woken up every night, right? And I'm like, give me a break. I just need to get some sleep, right?
Because that's how those downloads work. You don't get any sleep while you're downloading.
No, because I mean, I'm up. 1 second. Just give me a second. I should have picked this up earlier, right? But no, I'm. This is middle of the night, right? I mean, I'm sitting there, you know, receiving these downloads and drawing charts and books, and this is all written at like 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, right? So I'm up in the middle of the night, and then I'm receiving all this information that I need to then. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and this just went on for months, right? So I just sort of was continuously receiving these divine downloads, and I'm up at 2 in the morning and 3 o'clock in the morning, sitting there like writing like mad. It was quite an extraordinary experience, something I've never experienced before, but truly a real blessing.
Yeah. And for our audience sake, who do not know who Dr. Hammer is, could you explain just a little bit about that?
Yeah. So Dr. Hummer was and still is the youngest medical doctor ever to qualify to practice medicine in Germany. He sadly passed away in 2017. But what happened, Raven, in 1978, his 19-year-old son was shot and murdered. So at that time, he was the head of a cancer research unit, a gynecological oncology unit associated with Munich University. And 2 months after his son died, he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of testicular cancer called a testicular teratoma with metastasis to the stomach. Now, as a traditional medical doctor, basically, according to common knowledge within medicine, cancer is an unlucky lottery, right? So there's no cause for it. It sort of falls down out of the sky, and if you're the unlucky one it lands on, then bad luck, right? But Dr. Hummer, he was curious because 2 months previously, his 19-year-old son was shot and murdered, and basically he couldn't help thinking there must be a causal link between him losing a child and then getting an aggressive cancer on a reproductive organ 2 months later, right? So at the time he decided he had surgery, he had a testicle removed and part of his stomach, but he refused chemotherapy and radiation, as I believe most doctors do. When he recovered, as part of his cancer research, he was working with 200 female terminal cancer patients. And what he did is he started a process of investigating to see whether they'd gone through a similar type of emotional trauma to him before they got cancer. And out of 200 people, 200 had. Okay, so, and then what happened, Raven, when he started putting the women into separate categories, women with cervical cancer and uterine cancer and mammary gland breast cancer or ductal breast cancer, what he observed is the same women in the same category that all suffered from the same type of trauma. So, for example, the women with ovarian cancer had all suffered from some form of profound loss, in the same way he'd suffered from a profound loss before he got testicular cancer. So strong patterns emerged from that initial study, and sort of wind forward 39 years of cancer research with over 50,000 cancer patients. Basically, what he concluded is that cancer is actually not a disease. It's actually what he called a survival biological program. Okay, and the way it works is his son was shot and murdered, and then he got cancer on his testicle. Okay, now what he discovered is that the cancer on his testicle was actually functional tissue. And it had a biological purpose and a biological function. So the way it worked is that his son died. So he's in a crisis. What nature has basically done is increase the size of his testicles so that it could increase his sperm and testosterone production. So he had a greater capacity to get his wife pregnant to replace the child he just lost. And once he understood that fundamental mechanism, then he essentially unraveled the biological code, and created this monster of a book. This is the scientific chart of German medicine, and it is a real monster. He has essentially rewritten the books of medicine, identifying both the life cause, what causes a change in every cell in our biology, the biological function, so why it changes the way it does and how it provides protection for you, and basically how to resolve those issues. The problem is, Raven, when he presented this research as a postdoctoral thesis in Germany to his university, basically they refused to validate his research findings. And in Germany, there's a law that if a postdoctoral thesis is presented, the university by law has to either prove or disprove the thesis. Germans are very structured, right? And they're very systematic in their approach. So Dr. Hummer took the university to court, and basically they refused in court to verify these findings. And when the judge asked why, basically the university said, we don't want to know whether Dr. Hummer is right or not. And then they paid a fine, and then they buried these research findings. Dr. Hummer estimated that when these research findings are allowed to surface, that 95% of all symptom-based treatment modalities, and that's in conventional and in alternative medicine, essentially will go out of business. so,
Yeah.
you know, he's according to the existing system, he's a very dangerous man. And I mean, he spent over 3 years in prison. He had 12 attempts on his life, and they tried to put him in a mental institution 75 times in 30 years. So, you know, he was clearly perceived as being a very dangerous man to the existing system. He essentially puts them out of business, right? So, so I found his medical discoveries in 2012, and I've been studying them ever since and testing them to make sure that they are what they say they are, and indeed they are what they say they are.
Well, and I want to add that he worked with cancer patients, and didn't he have a 90% success rate?
No, he had a 92% success rate.
Okay. Right. So he had a 92% success rate.
So one of
They were trying to shut him down.
Yeah, one of in one of the many criminal process, because they basically, because he refused to retract his medical discoveries, they took away his medical license, and then each time he would consult with typically like a terminally ill cancer patient, they would arrest him, throw him in prison, right? I mean, in 2004, he was arrested in Spain and extradited to France, and put in prison in France for 3 years in a high security jail, because a French doctor managed to get hold of his medical discoveries and was treating his French patients using Dr. Hummer's medical discoveries. So the French courts put Dr. Hummer in jail. He'd never met a French doctor or the doctor's patients, right? So the French court put Dr. Hummer in jail for conspiracy to practice medicine. So,
Lisa,
yeah.
you have any questions?
While we're talking about Dr. Hammer, what I found as I was reading through the book, you mentioned how he would take a look at their brain, the CT scan.
That's right.
Yeah. And so he was able to determine just by looking at the brain scan that there was either something prior or existing, because I mean, throughout the book, you give examples. So may you touch just a little bit about that as well to share with our audience?
Yeah, so it's quite fortuitous. The brain CT scan as technology only got introduced in, I think, like 1980 or 1981. Right, so from a conventional medicine perspective, it's a brand new technology, right? And Dr. Hummer, when he was on his journey, once he connected the dots between, you know, essentially what happens is we get a trauma that comes from outside, it hits the brain then sends signals down to the organ. Once Dr. Hummer worked out exactly how this process worked, and of course his first line of investigation is what's happening on the brain, right? So over the course of his lifetime, essentially, if he got to the point where if you gave him your, so what happens is when we have an emotional trauma, or what Dr. Hummer called an unexpected biological conflict shock. So we have this trauma from the outside that hits our brain, right? Now what it does is it leaves like a bullseye, a target ring, a very sharply defined target ring, with concentric circles, right? So basically, when you get the brain CT scan, you can see this bullseye on the brain, on the relay that that manages that organ. So, as part of his medical research, historically, conventional medicine mapped the outer part of the brain. Right, there were two American doctors in the 1930s, and you can look up a concept called homunculus, where they mapped on the outside of the brain exactly which parts of the biology, which parts of the brain managed which part of the organ, but they can never map the interiors of the brain. So what Dr. Hummer has also done is completely mapped the interiors of the brain, right? So you can see, let me see if I can find a page. You can see it on like this, right? So this is like the if you put a section slice across your head, right? I mean, you've got all of the different parts of the biology, right? So what he's essentially done is worked back through. Okay, you've had a you've had a heart attack, and then go through over enough patients to be able to piece together exactly. You know, so he's completely mapped the entire brain, right, and in extraordinary amounts of detail. So, you know, you've got all of this stuff where you've got all of the different sort of slices of the brain, and then he's mapped every part of the brain. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. And when you have, so you get stuff like this, right, where he's like mapped everything. So
Wow.
when you take that brain CT scan, you can, and Dr. Hummer, I mean, he developed a skill to an extraordinary level. If you gave him your brain CT scan, he could essentially write your life story. Exactly.
Wow.
What age? At the age of 6 or 7, you had your first sexual conflict, you know, and then he'd go through a map. He could like tell your entire life story from a brain CT scan, right? I mean, I read brain CT scans. Nowhere near to the level that Dr. Hummer would read them. But yeah, so he made you can with a brain CT scan you can essentially you can see some entire life history, every trauma they've gone through, and every disease they've suffered. So with that one diagnostic, I mean, you can tell everything, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, particularly if you've got like a complex, like a lung issue, or you've got a multiple organ issue, getting a brain CT is absolutely critical, because you can make sure, even on the CT, you can see whether the trauma has just happened or whether it's been resolved and whether it's healing or whether it's fully healed. I mean, all of this you can tell from the brain CT scan, right? Now, medical doctors actually can't read brain CT scans. They've never been trained to read them. As I said, the technology only came out in like the 80s, right? So Dr. Hum said, guys, you know, medical doctors can't read brain CT scans. So I mean, I wanted to check this for myself. So what I've done on a number of occasions is anytime somebody's come to me, like for example, with a brain cancer diagnosis, right? Now, according to Dr. Hummer, brain cancer is biologically impossible, right? Because neurons do not multiply after birth. The only cells that multiply in the brain are called glial cells, and basically they have the purpose of, they're like a needle and thread, right? They go around, and when we have a trauma, our neurons get damaged, and these little glial cells go in and sort of stitch it all back together, right? So typically one of the brain cancer diagnoses you'll have is called like a glioblastoma. I mean, this is, so they're saying that the repair work is a brain tumor, right? Which is complete and utter madness. So what I used to do is, if somebody came to me with a brain cancer diagnosis, I would get their brain CT done, and then I would send them to the 5 leading neurologists. Okay, now I live in India. Okay, so I'd send them to the 5 leading neurologists in India, and basically instruct the person to not share their brain cancer diagnosis, right? So to do a blind on a neurologist, and I'd send them to these neurologists, and they would give these brain scans to these neurologists. They go, oh yeah. Oh no, you're fine. Go home and take a painkiller, right? Nothing wrong, because they can't read these brain scans, right? So then what I would do is I would then send them to 5 more neurologists and say, give them the brain cancer diagnosis and see what they say. So then they go to 5 more neurologists, right? And they give them the brain cancer diagnosis. Say, oh yeah, you got brain cancer, right? The whole system's a fraud, right? You just have to know how to flush it out.
Well, because now if you get a cancer diagnosis in the United States, you're worth $1 million to the government.
Indeed, you are. Yeah, and I mean that's in business we have a saying that show me the incentive and I will show you the behavior behind the incentive, right? So if I'm in the business of cancer, and I can make $1 million, right, out of my simple words, you have cancer. If I can ching $1 million every time I say those magic words, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say them often.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what happens, right?
Yeah. So
you just follow the incentive and you'll follow the behavior, right? If you're going to give somebody $1 million to say those magic words, then I mean, how often do you want to say them? Like every day? Okay, good idea.
Yeah.
That's the way it works, right? I mean, there's a number of medical doctors in America have been put in prison for falsely identifying people to make money, right? How strange that, given that they earn $1 million every time they do it. But it's not only what the system perceives as being the crooked doctors. I mean, it's the whole system, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah. So circling back around to when you were talking about getting your downloads, something else also came out of these downloads, didn't it?
It did, yeah. The first month, the downloads initially were telling me to rewrite my breast cancer book, which is like this one, which I have dutifully done. But the next 2 months, I was instructed to set up a course to teach people to trigger spontaneous cathartic healing. Okay, I've been studying in parallel with studying Dr. Hummer's medical discoveries. My journey started on this in about 2004, when a friend of mine was diagnosed with cancer, and I both funded her treatment and ensured her compliance to treatment, and she died after 3 rounds of chemo, which was devastating. That's when I started my journey of looking for better solutions to cancer, like over 20 years ago. And I'm not a doctor, right? I'm neither I spent my life in venture capital and stuff, right? Like really, not particularly interesting stuff, right? But yeah, I've been studying cancer for over 20 years, and in 2012, I had my first unconscious cathartic healing experience. For 6 months, my body was riddled full of golf ball-sized knots, and at that time, I was running ultramarathons. I got into the Guinness Book of Records running ultramarathons in 2010. I used to have quite a bad running habit. So in 2012, basically, I was crippled for 6 months and could barely walk. And to put some context around it, I split up with my ex-wife in 2011. I met my new life partner in 2012, but she was an American diplomat, so she was posted to Bombay for 2 years, and the next posting was in Santiago de Chile. So we agreed that when she left Bombay that we would end the relationship, because who has a relationship between South America and India, right? I mean, that's insane. So night before she was due to leave on a Friday night, I went to say goodbye and end the relationship. And we had a very difficult evening and decided that we couldn't terminate the relationship because we'd become soulmates. And so on Saturday morning, I woke up and all the knots that had riddled my body for 6 months magically disappeared, like poof, overnight. So for 6 months, I was essentially crippled with these knots, and that experience really sparked my interest and my imagination to find out what the mechanism was that could trigger this spontaneous healing, to the point where the previous 6 months I'd been in physio, right? A physio iron out the knots in your muscles, and they use their elbows like this, right? And they put their full body weight on your muscles with their elbows, and they iron out the knots, and it's excruciating. And the knots would come back 2 days later. Then I was on this excruciatingly painful merry-go-round for a 6-month period, and with no end in sight. But then when I solved this problem of not ending the relationship with my soulmate, all of these knots just magically disappeared overnight. So what I've been studying cathartic healing for the past 13 years. And during these downloads, basically I was instructed to set up a course to teach people how to trigger spontaneous cathartic healing. And again, I was instructed to set up a course. I was given the module structure, the content of each module. This is what came. That's why I'm sitting there all night at 2 o'clock in the morning, going like this, right? So I set up a course called the BioSwitch, which is basically how to switch off chronic illness like a light switch. And I've got some fabulous. If you can check out my website is danny-carroll.com.
Which is right down on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, right on the bottom of the screen. Absolutely. If you go to the featured on page on my website, I put a lot of the content from that course up. But you have case studies. I put case studies up of Julie Minther had incurable celiac disease for 35 years, and she switched it off like a light switch. Ria Sangavi had, she's 31 years old, and she had bronchitis for 19 out of her 31 years. And now she is cough-free for the first time in her life, right? So it's extraordinary. I went through. I had a cancer in my jaw in 2019, and basically it was triggered by a 5-second argument with my wife, right? And to make it even more difficult to find what triggered that problem. My conscious mind, it was a 5-second argument, right? My conscious mind, like, whatever. But my subconscious mind basically took that experience as a cancer triggering unexpected traumatic event, right? Triggered cancer in my jaw. So by the time I ended up, this really helped me to develop my understanding of how the subconscious mind works. So in the end, I ended up giving my subconscious mind very strict directions to tell me what causes problem. So you can use, once you can connect the cause of an event to the symptoms of an event, you can essentially switch that off, right? So I switched the cancer off. I had a big tumor on my jaw, right? So in our biology, we have this thing called tuberculosis mycobacteria, which doctors actually think is a disease, but it's not. It's nature's garbage collectors, right? So what it does, it comes in and it rots the flesh, and then it removes it, right? So basically, that went on for 4 months, and I had the smell and taste of rotting flesh in my mouth for 4 months, which wasn't particularly pleasant. But once you understand how it works, it's like, okay, this is what it is. But what happened is at the end of the process, my jaw was destroyed and all my teeth fell out. So I ended up with no teeth and no jaw. So I had to have a bone graft on my jaw. I had a 5-hour reconstructive surgery with a bone graft on my jaw and implants put in my jaw. And at the time, so again, this is 2019 when the cancer came. It was 2021 until the surgery happened because it was broken up by COVID, right? As you do. So I had when I went through the surgery, I had a painkiller at the time of the surgery, and then another painkiller at night time, at the day of the surgery. But then I woke up next morning. Of course, I've got like the ba-dum, 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 ba-dum on my jaw, right? I've just had a 5-hour reconstructive surgery with bone graft and implants put in, right? So I thought to myself, okay. I wonder if I can switch this pain off, right? I switched pain off from backache and IBS and switched off itching from eczema. I switched off all sorts of things, right, over the years. This is what I've sort of been learning to do. And so I thought, right, okay, what's the biological purpose of pain? And the biological purpose of pain is actually to stop you from using something so that it can heal, right? So if you cut your finger in the kitchen, if you don't use that, if you don't use your finger, then you'll have no pain, right? As soon as you start sort of trying to do the dishes or something, right? Or,
or you hit it.
Or even typing on your computer, right? Or doing the gardening or whatever, right? As soon as you start trying to use it, then it goes ba-dum, 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 right? Because it's like, this is broken. Don't use it, right? So if you don't use it, you'll have no pain. So I thought, okay, well, I have no teeth, right? So I can't use my teeth because I don't have any, right? And you can't chew with just like a bottom set of teeth, right? Because it's got nothing to clunk on, right? So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I've got no teeth, right? So I can't use it. So let me see if I can switch this pain off, right? So I did that, right? So I'm sitting there going, okay, subconscious mind, I know I've just had a 5-hour reconstructive surgery and I've got crippling pain in my jaw. I know the biological purpose of pain is to stop me from using something so that it has the time, space, and energy to heal, right? I have no teeth, right? So I'm not going to use it. I'll give it time to heal. Switch the pain off. Bang. The pain just switched off, right? And at that time, I after that first surgery, I slept for between 20 to 22 hours a day for 3 weeks, right? Whilst my body was healing, it just like shut me down, right? So anyway, last September, it's another long story, but I woke up and the dental bridge that they put in, basically I woke up with it in my mouth, right? The bridge had fallen down. So then I had to, in January this year, I had to have another reconstructive surgery, but this time I had to have the bone graft in my sinuses, right? And they last time they put in normal implants, which are basically 5 millimeters by 3 millimeters. This time they put in industrial size implants, which were 10 millimeters by 4 millimeters. So I got like these huge chunks of metal in my jaw, right? And I'm coming back from the second surgery, and last time I switched the pain off, right? But I switched it off after it started. So this time I thought, okay, let me see if I can get ahead of the pain, right? So I had another discussion with my subconscious mind and said, right, okay, subconscious mind, I know I've just had another surgery with another bone graft, and I'm going to have banging pain on my jaw. The biological purpose of pain is to stop me from using it. I have no teeth. I'm not going to use it. Do not start the pain program. And the pain never started. That was it. And then this time, right, actually the night before the surgery, right, I'm sitting there thinking, why does nature shut you down? Why am I sleeping for 22 hours a day, right? After when my jaw is broken, and I did some research on it, and what I discovered is that when your jaw is damaged, nature assumes that you can't eat, right? Because your jaw is damaged, right? So what nature does is it puts you into hibernation mode, because the idea is that if you can't consume, you shouldn't burn, right? Because otherwise you'll waste away. So it puts you in hibernation mode, where basically you sleep for 22 hours a day. So I thought, let me do an experiment, right? So when I was coming back from the surgery, I said I have these stern discussions with my subconscious mind, right? And I'm like, okay, subconscious mind, I know last time I had the surgery, I slept for 22 hours a day, and I know the biological purpose of that is to stop me from burning when I can't consume. Right, so I will consume through fresh fruit juices and soft food, and only eating on the good side of my jaw. I will make sure I can consume. So do not switch the chronic fatigue program on, and it didn't switch it on, right?
Nice.
So I've essentially just gone for a major second reconstructive surgery on my jaw. And we all know toothache and jaw ache, right? What type of pain that is generally. I've just gone through that entire process with zero pain and zero chronic fatigue. And I mean zero. I mean, it was truly extraordinary. And this is basically what I teach in my BioSwitch course about how to do this. Man,
Wow.
right?
It's amazing what the mind can do, because both Lisa and I are hypnotherapists, and we understand the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind, and
that's right,
and all the information that it holds. Because if we held all that in our conscious mind, we'd explode.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the problem, Raven, right? I mean, when you know very well from your work, right, that the subconscious mind buries trauma, right? Mm-hmm. That's in some ways that's a service to us, right? Because if we had every trauma we'd been through in life in our conscious mind, I mean, we'd be miserable, right? I mean, right. So burying the trauma in the subconscious mind on one way is a service, but on the other way, it creates a huge problem, right? Because that trauma, let me give you an analogy. That trauma is like a light switch, right? So when you go home, you use the same light switch to turn the light on and turn the light off, right? So trauma works in exactly the same way, right? So you take Dr. Hummer, right? When he had the trauma of his son dying, the switch of increased testicles to increase sperm and testosterone production, that program is essentially switched on, right? Now, when the subconscious mind buries that event, it's essentially burying the switch, right? So it's like imagine walking into your house and you put the light on and the electrician comes behind you and he hides the light switch, right? Now your light's on and you can't find the damn switch to switch it off because the electrician has hidden it, right? That's what happens when the subconscious mind, when it buries trauma, it's burying the on switch that triggers the cancers and all of the things, right? The MSs and Parkinson's and whatever it is that trauma, whichever biological program that's triggered. But basically, that's the off switch as well, right? So it switched it on and then hidden it, and that's a problem. And that's then you have to be able to work through and learn how to get the subconscious mind, because the problem is when a subconscious mind buries a trauma, as far as our conscious mind is considered, we've not experienced that trauma. If I sit there and say, oh, have you experienced a fear of death or this, and you say, no, because your subconscious mind has buried that trauma. So as far as your conscious mind is concerned, you never experienced it, right? Because you don't have conscious access to it. You know this. You do this all the time, right? In I'm sure in your hypnotherapy sessions, this is what you're digging for, right? To dig to get these traumas to surface, right? Because
Absolutely.
unless and until you can get that trauma to
The
surface
root.
and you don't have access
Mhm.
to it, then you've got the on switch and off switch for a cancer or an MS or an arthritis or whatever buried in your subconscious mind. And unless you can get that thing to surface, then there's no way. It's like unless you can find the light switch, you can't turn the damn light back off again, right? And that's the
Right.
problem. That's the issue.
Awesome. That's
So if I can ask Danny, in
Hi, Lisa.
regards to your course that you created for the bio switch, is this a course that somebody can just access, like purchase it and learn on their own time, or is this a course that you teach live?
So it's both actually. The primary course has started out with 13 hours of recorded content. What I do is I do a monthly live Q&A on different, switching off hip pain, switching off toothache, switching off, this month was like thyroid, for example. So what I do is each month I then add that Q&A into the training. So I think the training is now up to 17, 18 hours of recorded content. And then we do a monthly live Q&A case study. So somebody who's come in, used the course, learned whatever, had bronchitis for 20 years or celiac disease for 35 years or all of these things, and then they come in and share how they've used the BioSwitch course to switch off their chronic health condition, and then all of the other students get to ask some questions basically in what they did and how they did it and stuff like that. So there's three elements to it. There's a recorded training, there's a live Q&A, and I put up a community group to help support people. If you have questions, you come in, you just post your questions so that I can guide you on the journey. What I've done, Lisa, is on the featured on page on my author website, the one here, I've put a lot of the content from the course for people to go through, to see whether it resonates with them, right? So I put the introduction module, I put the first live Q&A on hip pain, I put a couple of case studies, I put Ria's case study of switching off bronchitis after 19 years. I put my case study and how I did a video. That's quite funny. I did a video the day after my second surgery in January. I did a video so you can see my face out here and stuff like that, just for fun, right? So you can go and watch how I switched off the pain and the chronic fatigue and essentially went through the entire healing process of a major dental reconstructive surgery with zero pain, right? So all of that content and then the links to the course are on the featured on page of my website. So if anybody would like to go and check that out, they're most welcome.
Thank you for sharing that. And I just thank you for questioning everything, and thank you for your expanded consciousness, wanting to get the answers and wanting to know, because as you said, this has been a plus 20 years for you. And
that's right.
I want to say, I think it was in chapter 3, learned how to switch off. I mean, this is like an incredible list of like more than a few of them are super, like maybe serious, but hey, you found your switch and you turned it off, and
Absolutely.
that's like incredible. It's just you.
Sorry. Thank you, Lisa.
You for just
this
being,
is,
being you. Thank you for being you.
I question everything, Lisa, partly because I spent the best part of a decade studying many healing modalities, right? And every healing modality I started, it was like, this is the Holy Grail. This has all the answers, right? And I'd go in and I'd spend years testing it and whatever. And in the end of the day, it was always a big promise and very little delivery, right? So I got very disenchanted with the entire world of healing, to the point where I just became really skeptical. It's like, oh yeah, that's another load of BS, right? Okay, whatever, let's go and test it. And so my need to question everything basically was driven by the fact that I spent many years, messing around, wasting my time on so many different modalities, and I never really made. And what I discovered is that we all know that conventional medicine is a system of symptomatic treatment, right? Well, what we don't realize is a good number, or a vast majority, of the alternative healing modalities, nutritional healing, Ayurveda, homeopathy, chiropractors, whatever, are still also systems of symptomatic treatment, right? I mean, if you look at Dr. Hummer's case study, his son was shot and murdered. That hit his brain and then sent a message to his testicle, okay, increased production of testosterone and sperm, right? Now, the testicle is the symptom of the problem, right? The testicle is just doing what it's told. The cause of the problem was his son getting murdered, right? So it was the life trauma. The cause of the problem is always in the external environment. It's always a danger or an unexpected hurdle in life. And the way our body works is very same as the way a car works, right? So if you're driving your car and you see a danger ahead on the road, right, you have two choices. You can either put your foot on the brake and stop before you get to that danger, right? Or you can put your foot on the accelerator and you can sort of bypass it, right? Now, essentially, cancer and any other change in our biology is our brakes and our accelerator, right? So what happens is when we hit a unexpected hurdle in life, trauma, our biology has to adjust in order to help us to solve that problem, right? The same way you put your foot on the brake or you put your foot on the accelerator, so you either decrease your speed or you increase your speed in order to be able to avoid the danger on the road, right? So basically, cancer is our brakes and our accelerator. So it will either decrease the capacity of an organ, more testosterone or more thyroxine or more blood sugar or whatever it is, more digestive enzymes in your stomach, whatever it is that you need to solve the problem that you faced in life. Your biology reacts in order to help you to solve that problem. And that's all essentially every change. Our biology is designed to help us to survive, right? So every change in our biology, whether it's a runny nose, a sore throat, bad stomach, a cancer, is all just our biology adjusting to help us to manage our external environment, right? So when the problem is we don't understand, when we have this traumatic event, we don't understand how that changes how our biology changes and why it changes, right? So when you can connect those dots, okay, yeah, I just had a fear of death and the capacity of my lungs has just increased to stop me from dying, right? But that's what modern medicine will call lung cancer, okay? Or, this is my new book on breast cancer, right? So, I'm a mother walking along the street, talking to a friend with my 5-year-old child, and the child pulls away from me. I'm not paying attention, right? Runs into the road and gets hit by a car. And all I hear is the screeching of the tires. And then I see my child laying unconscious on the road, right? So now my child is 5 years old. I'm no longer lactating, right? What's going to happen in that particular situation is you now have a sick child. So what nature's going to do is say, okay, sick child, activate milk production in the breast. Why? because back in our evolutionary development, the breast is a nurturing tool, right? And before our so-called civilized society, right, the breast was the only tool a woman had to be able to nurse a sick loved one, right? So if a child gets hit by a car, what's going to happen is that you go, you hear the tires screeching, you look over, you see your child laying on the floor, bang, trauma. Okay, sick child, activate breast milk so that mummy can nurse sick child back to health again, right? But that's what we call mammary or lobular carcinoma, breast cancer, right? So what we've, whether through ignorance or through money, what we've essentially done is weaponized nature's survival biological programs against us and said, oh no, this is cancer, it's going to spread around your body, it's going to sort of kill you from within inside, which is all complete and utter rubbish, right? So, but this is where we're at, right?
And then your mind plays such a pivotal role because, you know, when you hear those words and then all of a sudden your brain starts saying, oh, I have it. And so you own it.
Oh, yes. My breast cancer. Huh.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've literally been brainwashed into oblivion. Yeah, I mean, you don't even have to say you have cancer. People sit there and are absolutely petrified of the thought that they might ever get cancer, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
you know, we've programmed people to be so fearful, and they're essentially fearful of nature's survival programs that are there to stop you from dying, right? Nature's not here to kill us. In our lifetime, nature will never make a single mistake, right? So the only problem is we don't understand how it works. And then because of the fact that, you know, what was it you saying, Raven, that the average cancer patient in America is worth $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Now, we have this saying in business that show me the incentive, and I will show you the behavior, right? So if I'm going to earn $1 million, right, from, you know, saying those simple words, right? You have cancer, ching ching, dick, $1 million, right? Do you know how often I'm going to say that?
Pretty often.
Pretty often, right? Because it's going to be cha-ching, 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 right? So we've set up this entire structure in society where we incentivize the medical system to weaponize nature against us. There was a group of oncologists in Australia who did a study on chemotherapy. Right now, chemotherapy basically is mustard gas, right? If you ever see a bag of chemotherapy, it's got a skull and crossbones on it, right? It's actually mustard gas, right? Put that inside you. It's deadly poison, right? It's what they use in wars to kill people, right? So these oncologists in Australia, they took over 70,000, 72,000, 73,000 cancer patients who'd only had chemotherapy, and the number of people alive after 5 years was 2.3%. 2.3%. So basically 97.7% of people who'd taken chemotherapy died, right? So they thought, wow, this can't be right. Let's go to America, right? Let's go to, you know, the land of the free, and let's see their medical system and see what their survival rate is, right? So they doubled the sample size to like 155,000 people in America, and these are people that only taken chemotherapy, no surgery or radiation, right? And the number of people alive after 5 years from 155,000 people, I think like 3,306, right, which was a survival rate of 2.1%, right? So when we go to our oncologists and say, oh, what is the survival rate? You say, oh, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, whatever. You use all these numbers, right? The reality is 2%. and they would lie to you about it, right?
So Michelle says, I'm in Danny's program right now, and I'm so happy I found it.
Hi, Michelle. Yeah, Michelle joined this week. That's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Linda?
So I mean, the whole system is.
I'm excited to dive into that category on your website, because to me it seems that, so basically, like, our brain is like our CPU and it controls the body. The brain controls our body, and so it just looking at things from a different perspective.
All my primary learning, I've done a wide vast, but my primary learning on the subconscious mind was by a fine Irish professor, a guy called Dr. Joseph Murphy, right? He wrote this book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. He published that in, like, I think 1964, right? And still sells like hundreds of thousands of books a year, right? And, you know, after half a century, right? 60 years it got published. So it's a well-tested body of knowledge. But what he basically said, Lisa, was that if our brain is like a ship on the ocean, right? So our conscious mind is like the captain of the ship, and our subconscious mind is like the crew below deck, right? So the captain of the ship is the only one that has full visibility, right? So the crew below deck, what do? They do what they're told, right? Why? Because they're below deck, can't see anything, right? They're below deck, right? So if the captain says change to 5 degrees north and increase speed by 10 knots, whatever, then bang, they just do what they're told, right? So our subconscious mind is exactly the same. It just does what it's told, right? So all you have to do is learn what to tell it. And Dr. Hummer never covered the subconscious mind in his body of medical discoveries. So what I've discovered over the last 10 years is when you combine the power, so 95 to 97% of our problem-solving capacity is in the subconscious mind, right? The biological programs that run our biology are in the subconscious mind. You know, if your child gets, Dr. Hummer's, when Dirk was murdered, Dr. Hummer didn't sit there and say, oh, okay, increase the size of my testicles so I can increase my sperm and testosterone production to get my wife pregnant. I mean, you don't do that, right? All of these programs run in the subconscious mind, right? The trauma is buried in the subconscious mind, right? And the way chronic health programs work is that our subconscious mind, when we have a trauma, it takes like a snapshot of all of the environmental issues around us, right? So taste, smell, sight, touch, everything, right? It will just take like a snapshot, bang. So when it stores that information down, it's a safety warning or a danger warning system, right? So if I get in a similar situation again, and it restarts the program, right? So all chronic health conditions basically are what we call subconscious tracks or reminders, basically saying, oh, last time you was in that situation, you got hurt. I'm going to switch that program back on again, right? So any chronic, any chronic health condition basically is triggered by subconscious tracks and reminders. So what I'm saying is all of the action, whether it's the biological programs, whether it's the buried trauma, whether it's the subconscious tracks, whether it's the biological programs, all run in the subconscious mind. So that's where you have to learn to manage the subconscious mind. But it's not that difficult, right? Because the subconscious mind is the crew below deck. So all it does is it does what it's told, right? So when I had the surgery on my jaw, I should have had pain, right? I've just had big chunks of metal put in my jaw, and I've had a bone graft in my jaw, right? I should have had the ba-dum. But because I understood the biological purpose of pain, the biological purpose of pain was to stop me from using it so it could heal, right? So what I've done is I've changed that biological program, said, right, okay, subconscious mind, don't switch on the pain. I give it the time to heal. So then I've got to stick to that deal, right? I can't use that side. If I use that side of my jaw, then the pain will start again. Okay? So once you understand how your subconscious mind works and how it triggers different biological programs and how you can manipulate and manage those biological programs, I mean, you can do all sorts of magic, and it's truly extraordinary. I mean, imagine going through a reconstructive surgery with zero pain and zero chronic fatigue. It's extraordinary. But that happened to me in January, right? That's what you can do.
Wow.
And I'm only just really learning what you can do, right? I mean, I've estimated that I've probably touched maybe 5% of Dr. Hummer's work, right? I've got like another 95% of what he called biological programs, right? What causes this cancer? What causes that cancer? What triggers this blood sugar, thyroid, this, arthritis, osteoporosis, yada, 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 all of that stuff, right? I still got a ton of it to test, right? But the stuff I've tested so far is mind-blowing. It's crazy.
Well, as
Your audience must
hypnotherapists, we both
become
Lisa
nuts.
and as hypnotherapists, both Lisa and I do know about the conscious and subconscious mind and having to rewire a few things and I think what you're also saying is we need to get back to healing ourselves because we've been programmed to search outside of ourselves for everything, including healing, and
That's
it's
right.
right inside of ourselves.
Man, I got this signature. You've seen part of my signature. I've added to that signature, and I've just put the med bed is in your head, right? We're all walking around with our own med beds, right?
Yep.
It's in your head. If the knowledge that I have acquired over the last 20 years, if that was taught to children, right, there would be no such thing as disease in this world, right? Because children would be aware of what's happening in their environment and how it's affecting their biology, right? So when they get these childhood diseases like chickenpox, measles, and whatever, those are all separation conflicts, right? So basically, when they connect the dots, say, oh, okay, mummy, I know I've got a sore throat because I can't swallow. You won't give me that biscuit, right? I mean, once you can start connecting what's going on in your life and how it changes your biology, if we taught that to children, basically, Julie Minther, she switched off to 35 years of incurable celiac disease, right? And she sent me a message like she's teaching her children as well now. I think her child is like 10 or 12 years old or something. And he had a sore throat, and he went to school. And he sat there, and he'd been listening to his mum talk about the course and everything, right? And he had this sore throat at school, and he switched to he's like 10, 12 years old, right? He switched the sore throat off at school, and then he came home and said, "Mummy, guess what I did today? I switched off my sore throat." I mean, it's amazing, right? If this was taught to children in school, I mean, there would be no such thing as disease in this world, right? But nobody's going to allow that to happen because puts too many people out of business. It's mad.
Yep, which is why they killed off Dr. Hummer.
I mean, they tried to. I mean, I think he actually planned his own exit. I mean, they had like I think 12 attempts to kill him. They didn't manage, right? I mean, he must have had some extraordinary karma. I think in the end he orchestrated his own exit. He was like 84. I think he felt he'd covered everything he needed to cover. So I mean, I think that he basically made a final application for his medical license, knowing that if he didn't get the medical license, it would probably kill him. And if he did get the medical license, it would probably kill him because it would have resolved a 40-year highly intense territorial conflict of having his medical license taken away, right? Basically would have killed him of a heart attack. And other things, right? And he knew, of course, he knew all of this, right? So I think my suspicion is he probably felt like he'd had enough and said, right, I'm out of here, right? So,
Well, at that age, I guess that he would have enough.
well, I'm planning to write books at least the age of 105, right? So I've got another 50 odd years of writing to go, right? So I've got a lot of work to cover. I'm not planning to leave anytime soon, right? So
Great.
Well, that's
great
another
to
thing
hear.
that you can do to yourself, because some people will say, "Oh, I'm going to live till I'm 80," and they do. They live till they're 80 because they told themselves that's what they're going to do.
That's right. My mum used to work in an old people's home in London, and very often she had people who'd come up to her and say, "Oh, Kath, just come say goodbye." Like, where are you going? I'm moving on, right? And like, I'm planning to go to bed to die, right? So I had enough. I'm getting out of here. And on many occasions, this is exactly what happened, right? Let's just go to bed and say, right, okay, I'm going to die tonight, and then they'd move on. So, that happened.
Yet another example of how the brain works.
It's extraordinary. The power you have to be able to manage and manipulate and change, right? I mean, you can't read in Dr. Hummer's scientific chart how to switch pain off before it starts, right? But when you learn how to manage your subconscious mind, you can do exactly that, and it's extraordinary. It's extraudinary. It's mad. Must be your audience must think I'm a complete nutter, right?
No. I am so excited to check out your bio switch course, because who would not benefit from being able to master your own body, your mind, all of your systems?
It's really simple. It's really simple, Lisa, right? I mean, so it's not simple. That's not fair. It's not simple, right? The concept is simple. The concept of you being the captain of your ship and your subconscious mind being the crew below deck means that basically, I mean, this is also a very important realization, right? That your subconscious mind is the crew below ship. If I say to my subconscious mind, "Oh, I'm feeling sick, make me well again," right? Nothing is going to happen, right? If the captain of the ship says to the crew below deck, "Head north faster," and then the crew below deck can say, "What the hell are you talking about? Yeah, which coordinates in the north do you head, and what speed do you want to go?" Right? So you can't. Giving commands to your subconscious mind is very similar to putting commands into AI, right? If you put a general command prompt in AI, it will just, you get back a bunch of garbage, right? But as you improve your skills at making a command prompt to AI, you get increasingly valuable information, right? Because you're giving it more and more specific commands, and you're getting better and better at giving it context in terms of exactly what you want it to do, right? So it's the same with your subconscious mind. If you give it a general direction, "I'm feeling sick, make me feel better," nothing's going to happen, right? But if you sit there and say, "Oh, okay, I know I've just had a fear of death, and you have just increased the capacity of my lungs in order to help me to stop me from dying. Thank you for that. Right? Okay, I no longer fear dying." Remove that extra capacity, and you can essentially control your biology in the same way you control sailing a ship, right? And it's mad. It sounds mad, right? So, but again, when I came out of surgery with my jaw, obviously pain's going to be there, right? I've just had 2 huge lumps of metal put in my jaw, and I've had an augmentation of the bone in my sinuses. Of course, there's going to be pain, right? But when you understand the biological purpose of the pain, the biological purpose of the pain is to stop you from using it so that it can heal. And once it's healed, you'll be able to use it with no pain, right? When you understand that biological purpose, you can achieve that biological purpose through other means by not having the pain, right? I've got no teeth, right? So I'm not going to use my jaw because I've got no teeth, right? So then if I say subconscious mind, I know I've got no teeth, so switch off the pain. I can't use it. No, I'm not going to use it. I've got no teeth, right? So subconscious mind, I've got no teeth. I'd give it a time, space, energy to heal. Do not switch on the pain program. And it just doesn't do it, right? It just does what it's told. But so once that penny drops, that you can learn to get your biology to do what you want it to do. I mean, it's mad, but it works, right? It's crazy.
Wow.
It's mad. It's no different. You're a hypnotist, right? So you will put somebody into a hip, and through the power of suggestion, you will implant seeds in their subconscious mind, right? But that's part of. I'm not a hypnotherapist, right? But I mean, that's a part of the process that you will go through to change people's behaviors, their values, the way they think, and all of these things, right?
Yes.
So it's exactly the same thing, but instead of you giving instructions to their subconscious mind, so what Dr. Joseph Murphy gives as a framework is that basically, just when you're sleeping at night, just before you're going to get into a REM sleep, when your conscious mind is coming down, basically you have a wide open door to your subconscious mind, right? So just before you're sleeping at nighttime, if you make this subconscious command, right? Okay, do not switch on the pain, do not switch on the teeth, do this, do that, do this, whatever. Basically, just before you're sleeping at night, you have a wide open window where you get direct access to your subconscious mind, right? That window opens up again in the morning, just as you're waking up, just as you're coming out of sleep, right? So at that particular time, so I'll give you another male example. In December 2023, my mum died from the mandated jabs, right? And I went into a deep depression. And I got to April of 2024, and I was still in a deep depression, right? And for the first time in a long time, I couldn't pull myself out of this depression, right? So I called one of my study buddy in Bombay, and I said, look, I can't pull myself out of this. And he said, right, Danny, what you do, he said, just monitor the unwanted negative thoughts and it'll give you an idea as to what's causing the depression, right? So I just sat there and monitored the unwanted negative thoughts, and everything that was coming up was about my dad, right? Now, to give you some background, my parents, when my mum passed away, my parents had been married for 56 years, right? And they had 3 children by the age of 20. They were grandparents by the age of 36. And great-grandparents by the age of 61, right? And they were literally, my parents were, they were like conjoined twins, right? They were so codependent, right? I could never see a situation where they could have lived independently, right? Because they were so heavily codependent, right? So I programmed my subconscious mind all my life that if one of my parents died, the other parent would either go together or they would go soon after, right? Mm-hmm. So when my mum passed away, my subconscious mind was doing essentially what it was told to do. All my life, I programmed my subconscious mind that when one of my parents goes, the other one's going to follow, right? So when my mum passed away, my subconscious mind essentially was mourning the loss of my dad, even though he hadn't died, right? Because that's what I programmed it to do. So that's why I was in a deep depression. My subconscious mind was mourning the loss of my mum and my dad, even though my dad hadn't died, because that's what I told it to do. Okay? God. So Tuesday night, I go to bed and I say, subconscious mind, you know, I've been telling you all these years that when one of my parents dies, the other one will go straight behind. Well, I was wrong. My mum's died, my dad's still here. And my dad's he's still only 76, right? So I said, my dad's he's here, he's fit and fine. I want to enjoy whatever time I have left with him. I can't enjoy that time if I'm in depression, okay? Switch off to depression. And I went to sleep. I woke up on Wednesday morning in a state of euphoria. Right? I woke up on a Wednesday morning and I felt like I'd been born again. I switched the depression off like a light switch. And I woke up after being in deep depression for 3.5 months by rewiring my subconscious mind, right? I created the depression by telling my subconscious mind that when one of my parents died, the other one would go after them, right? So I created my own depression. But then when I understood what I'd done, then I just rewired my subconscious mind and said, right, okay, know that, I was wrong, okay? I'm changing the rules of the game. My mum's died, my dad's still here, he's fit and fine, I want to enjoy the time with him. Switch the depression off, bang, and it switched the depression off like a light switch. It was just, honestly, I felt like I'd been born again, right? I woke up on a Wednesday morning and I felt like the world had been lifted off my shoulders and that it was just the most extraordinary new world I'd been born into. Just by making that change in my subconscious mind and switching that, and I switched the depression off like a light switch. It's insane, but it was amazing, transformative.
Well, I'm sorry about your mom, really, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, the more you go through life, Raven, the more you learn, right? That life provides experiences for us to learn from, and that's it, right? And so, you know, this second jaw surgery, right? I mean, okay, do you want to go through another reconstructive surgery? Okay, of course you don't, right? But that experience was sent to me as an opportunity to basically to learn. I mean, I learned for the first time how to switch pain off before it starts, and I learned for the first time in how to switch off chronic fatigue, right? In the situation of having a damaged jaw. Okay, now without having that surgery, I never would have had those opportunities, right? Those learning opportunities. So I look at every health challenge now as an exciting learning opportunity, right? People say, "Oh, he's mad." It's like, it's amazing, right? What I found over the years is that you learn to solve a complex problem, right? And then nature's very generous, right? So then it sends you a more complex problem to solve, right? So once you've learned to solve a more complex problem, then nature's very generous. It sends you a more complex problem to solve, right? And it just keeps sort of like taking your problem solving skills up a learning curve. But if you look at these health challenges, from a complex problem solving, I mean, I look at it as like sport, right? So that you can turn being sick into fun, right? I mean, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that, right?
No, might as well make something positive of it.
Why not?
Indeed. Yeah. Indeed.
So it's great, mad, right? So this is the problem. The big problem we have at the moment is that, I mean, this is Dr. Hummer's scientific chart, right? And this is incredibly detailed, right? But you can see, it's you've got to be somewhere near genius, right? To be able to, or it takes years to study and understand it, right? And the problem is the vast majority of, if I've got a toothache, right? I mean, do I want to go here to work out this whole toothache, right? So what I'm doing is, so I'm developing a brand called the Healing Tribune, the cause of disease made simple, right? And I'm planning to write. This is my book on breast cancer. This is the first in this series that I'm publishing on Amazon, right? This is my first book. This one, But this is going to be like a 500 book series, right? So once I get through, this is dermatitis. This one is like IBS. This one is on testicular cancer. So in the end, at the end of the journey, there's gonna be like 500 plus of these, right? One book for each disease. So the idea is that, you know, if you get breast cancer, you don't want to, you don't. It's very difficult to go into this, and for you to be able to get an actionable plan, you know, unless you spent the last 15 years studying the subject matter, right? So the idea of these little books basically is to take the complexity of Dr. Hummer's medical discoveries and repackage it so that, I mean, I'm sort of like, this is like Forrest Gump, right? This is the Forrest Gump version of Dr. Hummer's medical discoveries. The idea is to make it so that it is easy. You don't, you know, I want it so that anybody, any Joe Soap, right, can pick it up and read it and gain the benefit from Dr. Hummer's medical discoveries, but put it in simple, easy to read, accessible English. So, you know, if you've got breast cancer, you know, you want to pick up a breast cancer book, right? If you got lung cancer, you want to pick up a lung cancer book, right? So the idea is I'm going to write one book on each disease in easy, accessible, and the key thing in to solve any problem is to address the cause of the problem, right? So Dr. Hummer has given us essentially a sniper's rifle to understand the cause of the change of every cell in our biology, right? So all that needs to be do is take that, repackage it, and put it in a simple, easy to read format where you can understand. So what is the cause of most breast cancers? Separation. So, you know, you present it in a really easy to understand format, so that people can start learning to address the cause of disease rather than the symptoms of disease, right? And the cause of disease is always the outside trauma, right? So, you know, child gets hit by a car, mother hears screeching tires, trauma hits the brain triggers signal to breast, restart milk production, we have a sick child, right? So once you understand how that process works, and then you learn to use your subconscious mind in order to manipulate and manage those biological programs, there's nothing that you can't heal, right? Or nothing I've found yet, anyway.
Awesome.
So I'm if I can just ask for your intentions of this the Healing Tribune books, do you have a list going on which ones you are going to create? Like, do you have the next 10 that you know you want to do? Next 10 books? Do you have planned? Or are you just going with the flow?
No, I'm prioritizing. I'm to put a simple list together based on the number of deaths, right, from each condition. So breast cancer, for example, is the leading cause of death for American women, right? So then I just pick it off. You know, you got breast cancer, then lung cancer, you know, then colorectal cancer. Then I'm going to do all of the big ones first. In terms of potential, I'm looking at it from an impact perspective, right? So I'm trying to get the content out as quickly as possible for the major causes of death in today's world and society, right? And then once I get the first 30, 40 books done, whatever, then it's going to be a long tail, right, of, you know, looking at all of the smaller type of issues. So that's the plan at the moment. I'm just going to try and prioritize it to help save as many lives as I can, right? That's the thing.
Which is a good plan.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. That's amazing. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's
Excellent plan.
it's a divinely guided journey, Raven. Right? So, I get whatever I need to make this journey successful falls into my lap. Every time I need something to make this journey successful, boom, it falls into my lap, and I kid you not. Right? So it's quite extraordinary the way this is. Forget the divine downloads that told me exactly how to write the book, rewrite the book, etc. I mean, every step of this journey, whenever I reach a point where I get stuck, I mean, the solution comes to me, right? So I'm just like this tool of execution that's being, everything is being fed through me, resources given to me. Everything is just like falling into my lap, right? I mean, it's quite extraordinary. But what a pleasure and an honor to be sort of on this journey and the type of guidance I'm getting in order to make this journey successful. It's just I'm like a spectator of my own life, right? I'm just sitting back and watching the journey, sitting there thinking, wow, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a final question. What message would you like to leave our audience with?
There's two major summary points from what I've said, and that's firstly, Dr. Hummer has given us a Google map of our biology, and given us the life cause of the change of every single cell in our body. If you start your learning journey of learning that, you will at a point be able to connect everything that's going on in your life with how it changes your biology. And that in terms of removing fear, that's amazing, right? Because it demystifies, why am I sick? Why have I got cancer? Why have I got this? Why have I got that? It gives you all of the answers, right? And once you have those answers, I live in a world where there is no such thing as disease. And it's heaven on earth. Every time I have a change in my biology, I know what's going on in my life. I know what's triggering it. And once you get that bit under your belt, it's life transforming. Okay, because you no longer have fear of disease. I live in a world where there's no such thing as disease, right? So I would strongly recommend you get on that journey. If you would like to sign up to my website, you will get a free 400-page ebook that is the best summary of Dr. Hummer's medical discoveries in English. You'll get that as a free download. You'll also get a free 1-year course of 6 to 7 minute daily MP3 lessons that will take you on your learning journey of starting to learn how you're biologically wired. The second part of the journey is learning how to use that information, and that's basically all of that information of how your body functions biologically is stored in your subconscious mind. So you have to go, like going to the library, right? You have to go to the place where it's all stored. And our subconscious mind stores everything, the biological programs, it buries the trauma, it keeps all of the subconscious tracks and reminders that constantly re-trigger chronic illness. So learning how to manage and manipulate your subconscious mind is critical if you don't want to suffer from chronic illness in your life, because every chronic illness is triggered by subconscious tracks and reminders. So if you go to the featured on page in my website, I put a lot of material on there on my BioSwitch training course, where I teach you how to manage your subconscious mind. One final point: I'm launching this book. I'm publishing it hopefully in April. I'm looking for people who can read the book, advanced readers we call them, for people to read it, so that when I publish it, I have some people ready to post an honest review of the book. Reviews in today's book market largely determine whether a book is going to be successful or not. So I need to get people who are ready to post an honest review. If you reach out to me, I'd be happy to give you a copy of this book to read, so you can give me your honest feedback, and hopefully, if you're comfortable, post an honest review of it after I published it. Reviews in publishing today essentially are the wings that make a book fly, or not. So I need to build an army of people who have read the book and who are comfortable to post an honest review. I think this possibly will be one of the most important books I've ever written. And I think that over the course of time, this book will single-handedly save more lives than probably every other book I ever write. So this is a super important book, and I need all the help I can get to get it out into the world and save many lives in the process.
And your website is at the bottom of our screen.
Yes. So I say, if you go to the featured on page on my website, there's a lot of content on there from my training course that you can have a look through and see if it resonates with you or not.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danny. We really appreciate it. And we're going to have you back again.
Yay!
You know we will.
Absolute honor and pleasure, Raven and Lisa, to spend your Friday evening and my very early Saturday morning with you lovely ladies. It's always a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining.
We thank our audience for joining us as well. And I have a little special message for our audience. There is a free Zoom webinar about how to change your life and the lives of others. And it's on Sunday, March 9th, 8 a.m. Bangkok time. But it's 8 o'clock Saturday night, my time, and I'm on Eastern time. So they're like a day ahead of us and in the morning, just like Danny is.
Just like I am, exactly.
And
it's now 8 o'clock Saturday morning for me.
And this is an exciting webinar. We should really, I'm going to it, and I'm not sure if Lisa is or not, but I will paste the Zoom meeting and the passcode in the comments. I just did. So everybody, it's a free webinar. You might find something that resonates with you. And let me take that banner off. And everybody go to dannycarroll.com. And we thank you, Danny.
Thank you both so much for hosting me again. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to spend time with you as always. And I very much look forward to coming back for an update soon.
Yes. And we look forward to you coming back for an update too. Because I'm sure you have lots of more you'll have a lot more downloads.
Oh, I think so. Yes. It's coming fast and strong, Raven. So
right.
Yes.
Never a quiet minute.
All right, everybody. So we will see you in a fortnight. And that will that be the 4th? Let me look. trying to see when our next show will be, if I could find the right, hit the right thing.
March 21st.
Yes,
March 21st.
Who is on March 21st? Let's see. Oh, Theron is coming back. I think he's got another book.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. So everybody, we look forward to seeing you in a fortnight.
Mm-hmm.
We hope you have enjoyed watching Soul Fire Ascension with Raven and Lisa Lovelight. You can also watch Soul Fire Ascension on YouTube and Rumble at Soul Fire Ascension, or listen to us on Spotify. Please like, share, and subscribe. Soul Fire Ascension is sponsored by RavensHealingarts.com.